explaining his retirement, as well as the whole Call of Duty Academy team is now finished. But there is a lot of other drama going on there at the same time too. But some hot streaks are going on in the field teams. Field Rainbow Six Siege team is on a hot streak right now, and the CSGO team just actually broke their hot streak that they were on. As well, we will have some discussion about the Colligate Apex and how teams are finally now able to compete in like real competitions now, since EA is finally opening up that door. But now let's just sit back, relax as we get going into the field report. Here for this start one is the hot streaks are like, I mean, hot streaks are always like kind of like the best feeling. I mean, CJ, Kieran, you know, like the feeling when like your team's on like kind of that hot win, like going win after win. What do you think about that, CJ, for a hot win?
Well, you know what? Like I was just talking about in a little bit of our pre-production meeting there, it always feels good to go on a hot streak. Everybody knows that unique feeling. You know, you go on that burner, you feel untouchable. The gunny's just flying. Telling you a little story about Airzee, who we're going to talk about a little later in the show, was just carrying me out of the cellar in bronze and up through into silver. But nothing feels better than going on a hot streak like this segment is named.
Well, I mean, you know what? We got the Rainbow Six team here sitting with a hot one right now, winning a 4-0 winning streak right now. Like, that is just blown away. And I mean, Kieran, let's kind of like start this off. Like, who has been sticking out to you that is keeping this team to like bringing them to victory all the time?
Yeah, you know, this R6 team really focuses heavy on their slaying. So it's got to be those two top fraggers in Masonlit and Brendo. But, you know, overall, they've just been looking as one cohesive unit. So they've just sort of been rolling the competition as, you know, they are 4-0 currently. No really heavily contested maps, maybe one, but currently flawless. Haven't dropped the map, so that, you know, the team's just playing really well as a unit.
And I'm going to jump in real quick there. I got to ask. So there has been a sub playing a little bit for this Rainbow Six team, right, in Genesis?
Yeah.
I think, like, to me, that's what makes this winning streak all the more impressive. Like, I'm not sure if that's a testament to just the leadership off of Perza, the universal gunny throughout this team in general. But when you look at it, like we've seen it with the COD team, just how sort of temperamental it can be when you bring in that fourth player. But to maintain that cohesiveness and to get on this hot streak we're talking about right now, I think that's super impressive.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And I couldn't have put it better myself, CJ. But a lot of times with subs, you don't often have that that same sort of mesh that you do with your main roster player. But before this season kicked off, Kenny was he was definitely in contention for one of those spots. So he played a lot. He hangs out with the team a fair bit. So it's not like there's a stranger coming in and replacing one of your main players. It's somebody who knows how you guys play, and I definitely think that has had an effect on it. And Genesis has been looking great as well. We've got to see him the past few weeks, and he's been looking awesome. So I'm excited to see how he continues to progress, and hopefully this team can go undefeated this season.
You know, I mean, I think a lot of it goes down to even chemistry too, because I think last semester they actually did win the whole title for it was Face It, I believe. So, you know what, like, having that chemistry and even moving into this like next semester too now with that, like that must be a huge thing rolling around for chemistry and having almost like all these players still staying together.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. You know what? It's just, you know what? I'm just so glad you brought up last semester's championship as well. Because in general, to me, that just kind of shows R6 is building that proper culture in general. You know what I mean? When your subs hanging out with the team, when they're comfortable stepping in and not only just not being a weakness, but ready to perform as part of that unit, you know, it shows a really strong culture they have. Because I believe they lost some players coming out of last semester as well on that championship team. There were some retirements, I believe. So to still find success and to start this new season so hot, brilliant.
Yeah, they're looking really good, and I once again couldn't have put it better myself. But enough with R6. The CS:GO team, as we talked about in the intro, they did just unfortunately lose their winning streak, sitting at 3-1. Um, and yeah, no, they've been looking really good, and unfortunately last night they did have a loss to Purdue Black, but overall, I think there's nothing really too worrisome about that. All their players are looking really good. And maybe I can get a second opinion on that. Mins, what are you thinking about the CS:GO team?
Honestly, I was like really blown away from like just the recent game that they lost, because you know what, they were playing like with their hearts out there, and the whole team in general just seems like they have a good sort of chemistry going on. But Uga Splata though, that man, oh, when he has the op in his hand, that is just dangerous. And anyone is in his lane, they're gone. They're done with. And I can see when he is just that turning point in each game, that when he's that last man standing, he knows that he can actually eliminate three players by himself. And that can be huge in like close kind of quarter of games.
Yeah, you know what? Against that Purdue team, that was two teams at the absolute top of the leaderboard. You know what I mean? Coming into that evening, neither of them dropping a game yet. So I guess you could say Purdue is also could have had a bit of a hot streak segment themselves. But your Splata is so important for this CS:GO team that it was just when he's playing last night, he had a good night, but he wasn't on an absolute burner. You know what I mean? And when these two teams are so closely matched up, that could have been the difference down the stretch. Because honestly, it was the gunny off of Purdue. The field, they lost a couple gunfights. You know what I mean? It's just you lose a gunfight here, you lose a gunfight there. It stacks up. Credit to how well Purdue played, but it's just I feel like that's really what brought the CS:GO winning streak to an end.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
you put it beautifully. But I think I wouldn't be surprised if we see the CS team get back on this hot streak. A bit of a stumble, but nothing too concerning.
Yeah. And you know what? It's always kind of sometimes happens like that. A little highs, a little lows go on. But I mean, kind of talking about that with even the Fuel Call of Duty teams going on right now, just this week, they got a really highly contested win against Carleton, but they kind of lost against Western then right afterwards. And I mean, right after kind of the Western game, they were sort of mentioning that they're not really been liking the way they've been performing out there lately. CJ, what do you think has kind of been holding them back?
Honestly, like I've mentioned it on stream here and there. It's just for me at this point, it's a consistency thing. You know what I mean? I talk about it a lot. Week in and week out, you know what Bonk's going to bring. And Boss Ross, you know, he's actually done a great job of stepping up. Because my talking point throughout the season's been it's all about the other guys. And it just seems like when Boss Ross is turning up, Kieran Fiend might be having a slower map. When Kieran Fiend are turning up, Boss Ross might be having a slower map. You know what I mean? I just feel like individually they've all had such great moments. And like we saw in the Carleton game, when they start cooking those moments together, we see great things. But if it's just bonk going or everybody's having a rough round or two, you might see a roll closer to Western. But when they mentioned they're not happy with how they're performing, that was after a really tough game in the Battle of London. Ultimately, I get to watch all their games, and I feel like the team has really started to come on and perform down the stretch. So maybe they're being a little overcritical, but if they find themselves some consistency, my goodness, it'll definitely help them reach their top performance.
Yeah, I completely agree there, CJ. I think it also does boil down to a confidence thing. Obviously, if you've been keeping up with Fuel Call of Duty, you'll know there's been a fair few roster changes with this T1 team. At one point, Airzee was going to be playing on this T1 team, and then Noted was playing on this T1 team, and now they've found their comfort pick and their future teammate in Fiend, but it's just sort of ironing out the kinks and figuring out, okay, when I'm here, I know Fiend's going to be there. It's so good things to come with Call of Duty, because they definitely are slowly getting better and better and better. It's just it's once again, it comes down to that comfort and having that the trust in your teammates. So as they play more matches, I expect them to get a whole heck of a lot better, and I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, it wasn't just we saw Airzee initially was going to be that T1 guy. Then we have Noted rolling in Fiend. It's not just, the synergy of the actual gun skill, who's playing sub, who's playing AR, because we've seen role swaps in and amongst this muck as well. But it's just also, for me, a big thing that doesn't get talked about as much. We don't have the time or ability to touch on this on stream is the personalities in the room. You know what I mean? It's the guys you're going into battle with that really does make a difference. You know what I mean? Just getting to know that different dynamic. And you know what? Being really, really smart guy. You know what I mean? He's going to read some routes. He's going to make some big plays, but he's one of the quieter guys in and amongst those CoD guys. You know what I mean? So just, I feel like over time, getting comfortable, maybe asserting the plays I can see him reading out there a little bit more. It'll just help the squad as a whole grow a bit.
And you know what, though? The one thing I'm wanting to see right now of growth and some things that have been so mismatched right now is the Fuel Academy team. What's been going on with that?
Well, yeah. You know what, Netflash, you take this.
Yeah,
Both you guys
that,
want to talk
that
about
is,
this.
That's a whole kettle of fish. A lot has been going on with that. Obviously, we did have a roster coming in to the season, and that roster got swapped around a bit as one of the players chose not to participate on T2. He really wanted that T1 spot, and he just he left us. So that sort of shrunk our options down in terms of players, and we had to call to one of the veterans of our Call of Duty community in Rabid Goose, or It's Evan if you follow us from our Cold War days. That was him. So he's been around the block for a while, so we called him up off our sub list, and that just left one sub, and that sub being me. So we called Goose up, and he has taken that captain's ship as Fiend went on to T1 and Airzee came down to T2. After that, they started playing their season. They off to a really rough start in their season, not a whole heck of a lot of positives on that T2 side. And they Airzee, obviously, we're going to touch on this a little later, but it has been announced he chose to retire. And then one of our other players, he decided to hang it up and opt to go towards Valorant, and I believe he also went towards Apex. So you can't play COD with 3 players. So we decided to fold the team and FF the rest of the season, unfortunately.
So the one player you were saying that like kind of walked away, was that a NB?
No,
that we were thinking of?
No, NB hung it up last semester. He decided that his future wasn't right at Fanshawe, so he decided to step away from studies and sort of focus on himself a little bit. He's a very busy person with his family life and working, and so I don't blame him for that. And that's his decision. It was actually a new player to the COD scene for Fanshawe in Mystic. Not a whole heck of a lot of people know this, but the guy was
good,
disgusting,
really, really good, man. Like
really good.
The stars didn't align on that one at all, unfortunately.
Yeah, he had some family issues, and he also really wanted to play T1. And I think if he had made that T1 team, he would have stuck it out. But he had some family issues with and that's not my place to bring that up, what happened. So he decided to hang it up and take a step back from competing. And I can't blame him on that. I can't fault him on that. That's, it's entirely his decision, and I respect him for making that decision and handling it the way that he did. Unfortunately, we were forced to fold, but a lot of bad things happened to T2 this semester, and it's unfortunate, but I'm sure we'll be back in the future.
But I mean, pulling one thing kind of good out of that, though, I think what a lot of people miss out for T2 and they kind of disregard a lot is T2 is so much of a developing sort of team, and it's really trying to get you onto the line of making it to the T1 team. And I think the best example to show right now is Fiend. That man made his debut coming to the T2 at the start, And he didn't seem like he was too bothered by that. And look where he is now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And you know, we can talk about so many players who have made their appearance from T2 to T1, especially in Call of Duty. You have Boss Frost, who started on Academy. You have Airzee, who started on Academy. And all these players, while Airzee has sort of had his highs and lows, but Boss Frost is now a staple on our main team, and that's very like it's very telling that okay, this academy, this development team that is developing the future, or you know, a good replacement is working, and I think that's a really great thing for this program and for its future.
Yeah. Now, the one thing for me is like, we're talking about how, Academy is so significant for the development of T1 players. And realistically, it is. You know what I mean? It's created a fiend. It's helped create an energy, a Boss Frost. And you know what? So far this season, Boss Frost has been the second most consistent player on T1. You know what I mean? But now we're shutting down Academy for a season. You know what I mean? You're stopping the development pipe for a little bit there. And I just feel like you're going to feel it today if you're an active player, but you're also going to feel it tomorrow. You know what I mean? Because we've sort of built this cohesive, because when you go back in time a little bit, you look at Bonk, who was developed into just a superstar he is. He was taken under the wing of a Pups and a Radix a year ago. You know what I mean? He experienced the significance of being developed, having that process of where Bonk didn't just storm the castle and start being that one guy. You know what I mean? He got that development. Boss Frost got that exposure on T2, got to be the leader, the IGL, be that voice and rise up to T1. And it makes everything easier when everybody's going through these checks and this balances. And I just think of what shoulda, woulda, could have been. Because at the end of the day, you know what? I completely agree with you, Night Flash. Mystic is a dirty dog. You know what I mean? Absolutely amazing Call of Duty player. You know what? So is Brunin on T2 as well. Yeah, Brunin's really good. The comms aren't there, and that's not really particularly his fault. That's definitely something that I feel like he's going to be missing out on the opportunity to develop more because this academy season is being cut short. You know what I mean? But if you look at what could have been, you know what I mean? Look at all these guys who have been on T1 and T2 that could have been on this T2 squad. We could have had an Airzee or even a Mystic and a Noted, you know what I mean? And I just kind of feel like if we had that powerhouse T2, I think all those guys would have been happy to sit back, go to work, and start burning on some squads there. So I can't help but imagine what could have been in that scenario.
No, we definitely had like a very promising future. It's just it's a matter of, you know, availability. Stuff happens, you know what I mean? Like you can't plan for every single outcome. So unfortunately, like we like I keep saying unfortunately we folded, but yeah, it's really just sort of what happened. But like I wouldn't be too concerned with the development. Like I know that me personally, I still I queue rank play with Brunin. I still play with Brunin, you know. So in terms of development, I don't think it's that big of an issue. It's just I think that like it's very unfortunate how things turned out, because you know you really don't have any replacement to that, like playing against another competitive team, playing against another college, like that gets you fired up, and it also like gets you used to playing against teams who are organized and no comms, and you know they're calling you out, because I'm sure everybody listening to this, I'm sure you guys even have queued rank play solo or in a duo queue, and your three randoms, your two randoms don't have mics, don't know callouts, don't know rotation, whatever it may be. There seems to always be a problem with like the person that you're playing with, the random that you've been matched up with. So obviously it's not like as great, but if you can just if you train yourself to keep calling out, and you know, maybe you're not getting call outs, but if you're calling out for your teammates and you're like, okay, 15 seconds left on hill, I'm rotating next, I'm rotating that, and you just sort of get those reps in, and you can definitely still develop yourself. And I know that that's what Brunin's working on, because he's a young, hungry player who wants to be on that team one spot, and if he keeps going at the pace that he's going, I can definitely see him making it there.
Yeah, it's all about that structure, at the next level competitively. It's about that structure, the communication. And you know what? I was just having a conversation. Alex was there with for that last night with a friend, and he's not really into the Call of Duty scene. He's played some competitive Apex, actually. But we were discussing exactly this conversation here, call outs and rank and whatnot. And he's just like, for him in pubs, he thinks it's silliness. And if you're not playing comp, yeah, sure, it can be silliness. But you're talking about getting into rank play. You hear behind you, oh, I meant you, other guy. Like, not only are you getting bad call-outs, you're getting wrong call-outs. You know what I mean? And it's so damaging. So even if you guys, you're hopping into a scrim with P2, just getting that structure and taking the next step where it's no longer just TDM with these weird floaty blurbs everywhere that we're trying to do something around. It really becomes, there's some strategy to it. There's some play calling that it's when it takes the next level. You know what I mean? That's when Call of Duty is no longer TDM. And that's what I love about competitive play.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah. And you know what? After all this, unfortunately, Cameron is deciding after this season with sort of this little bit of mumbo jumbo that was going on with the Fuel Academy, he's going to put the controller down for a bit. I mean, we were trying to get him here live to talk more about it, but since the man is that down bad, he has went all the way off to Florida as we have to kind of sort of fight off this crazy winter storm that we're going on here. I know I saw so many driveways. That was insane amount of snow that we were getting. But you know what? We did catch him for an interview before he left, and we'll go to that now.
Welcome back to another segment on the Fuel Report. I'm CJ. I'm joined by Airzee, our guest for this segment, and Mr. Mins over here on our right. So to lead off our segment, last Friday, your last game with CoD and a little bit of a mid-season retirement play here. Walk us through that decision-making process.
It was tough. It's crazy because just to start off, I started CoD casting with, Alex Mins and Justin Reeder. Never even thinking about competing, and then I get to this point where it's like, wow, I have to play. I either play or another season or I'm done now. It was just, it was hard. It was really hard, and I guess getting to that point, we were really not doing well. We were 0-5 after Friday. Won one single map out of 14. So yeah, it was really tough, and I think anyone wants to play on the main team, right? Like that's what you play for. It's what I spent all of last year doing, was to try to get to that point, and it sucked that it didn't work out that way. But yeah, it was tough.
I guess what I'm curious about for the academy team right now, what's going on?
There was a lot going on. We had a couple guys in tryouts who we thought looked really good. Mystic was one of them. He was one of the guys I ended up competing against for the last T1 spot going into MW2. And something happened with him, something personal, stepped away from the game, then leading Rabid Goose to come in and step in as the fourth. And it was kind of chalked at that point. He didn't really want to play, and he was kind of thrown into that role. And then for me, this also went into my retirement. I'm going on vacation mid-season, and I didn't feel like it was my place to kind of chalk the team to play first 3 weeks and be selfish and screw up team chemistry going into weeks 4 and 5, and give someone like Noted a chance and give Fiend a chance, who are full-time players who are going to be here the entire time. So I wanted to play ACAD just so I could still play. And then possibly be a T1 sub if they needed someone. And yeah, it was just a bunch of mishmash. Like we were playing scrims, and we looked really good in scrims actually. We 5-0'd, swept a hard point scrim against Brock U, ACAD, which was really good last year, and just never really translated into games. And it was like one map out of possible 15 maps played, we won one map. It was hard.
Yeah, I totally understand your point about, leaving mid-season. That's why you couldn't join us live later in the week for this podcast. We'll get a little pre-recording done here now. But, part of just competing in this competitive level is you got to have a level of joy in what you're doing. You know what I mean? You're going to have to, you want to put in those extra hours. And the second the joy starts to, once it starts to feel like work, what really even is the point at that point?
Yeah, and I think for me, for example, just after the Friday matches, I was hoping to play this past Monday's matches. Rabbit Goose kind of chalked it for us. He wanted to get the season done and over with early so we could all just focus on school, do whatever we wanted to do. I had enough passion left in the tank for 2 more series, and I really wish we played them. But after those Friday sets, I know I'm not getting called back up to T1. I know their set 4 is set, and I'm really happy for them. I'm glad that they found that 4, and that was really my hope, was that they found a solid 4 going into the beginning of the year and that they could ride out the rest of the season. But it's tough. Just speaking from personal, I played ACAT all of last year, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to be able to prove to myself that I could make the jump, and I thought I'd learned enough throughout the whole year that I could make the jump. And bits and pieces happen. Some things don't go my way, and here I am now retiring halfway through the season.
Yeah, at the end of the day, though, it's not always, especially in a team dynamic sort of setting, it's not always the best player at all times either. You know what I mean? Fit, and we've seen fit be so crucial, especially on the T1 stage. Noted, for example, spent some time with Team 1, and he comes down to Academy, and he might be putting up crazy numbers, but you can't ignore the teammate chemistry of that as well. And then ultimately, we see Fiend rise up, and Fiend hasn't, on Monday night there, he actually had a great game, but Fiend isn't particularly known for having the most outrageous gunny out there, but it's just, he's a slower player, and he sort of fits the vibe. And you're right, it was a long time coming for T1 to sort of find that base, but it definitely looks like they're going to stick with it. But you know what? As one door closes, another one opens. What's next for Airzee?
There's so much I wanted to do, and part of my decision making was, do I want to come back and take a third year here and possibly have another shot to play T1? Do I want to spend the money to, further my education while still wanting to compete at that high level? And now I have to balance both competing on T1 with whatever third year is. Oh gosh.
I mean, Cameron, let's just back it up a little bit there, though. When you were talking about practices with the team and coming into even Modern Warfare 2, what has some differences been from trying to transition from Vanguard to Modern Warfare 2?
Just gameplay wise, it's a completely different engine. You got to change up your playstyle just a little bit to combat the new mechanics they added in. Like they brought back dolphin diving. They made slide canceling practically impossible. Like no one does it anymore. So winning your gunfights, especially your gun skill, is more important than ever. As in Vanguard, you could just slide cancel around a corner and camera someone, and before they even see you, they're already dead, right? So just changing up your playstyle was a big thing. I don't really know if that really had anything to do with practices more say. It's the same. The game plays the same way as any other game. It's the same game. You still have to learn spawns, learn rotations, learn your role. That doesn't really change from Vanguard and MW2, but it's just the way you're able to play. And sometimes people struggle finding their play style in a new engine like MW2's. I know I had kind of a struggle with that at first because wow, I can't slide cancel anymore. That's one of my main mechanics. That's why I was pretty good at Vanguard, was because I was able to do stuff like that. Bunny hopping it really doesn't exist in this game. It's hard to do. And it was chalked. Moving from that game to this game was way different. But in terms of practices, it's all the same thing, honestly. So team chemistry doesn't really change. It's just who's on the team at that point.
Yeah, you were really going into side saying that it was just so much of a mismatch that was going around, and I was just more kind of curious about that. Is this some of the reasons why we're seeing you guys kind of crumble a bit out there?
I think it's just where the team was at the beginning of the year to where it is now. And if we're talking about ACAT, it's I come on replacing Fiend, and now they have to get used to a new player on the team, a new voice on the team, I was a sub initially. And we had a little problems too where people wanted to change different roles. I was thrown on the AR, second AR for a while actually, so I was trying to get used to that as well. And then I was like, oh no, I guess I'm going back to the sub now. So there's, you play scrims to play for your roles, and then it's the next set of scrims, hey, can you run the AR now? So now you have to change up the entire your entire team dynamic, the way you call out, the way you play versus where your teammates play. It's just a little stuff like that changes. So it is a mishmash, and for T2 especially, it was, we didn't have a lot of like voices on the team. Like for last year, with Boss Frost was our main leader. We didn't have like an IGL, but Teo really took over for that, which was really nice. And look at him now. He's on T1 frying, and he's learning under Bonk, and he's that second voice, and they're playing really well. I tried to be that for this team, but I'm definitely no IGL. If I'm IGLing, I'm dropping donuts and S&Ds. I'm going double negative in hard points controls. I thrive playing just being told what to do, honestly, and let myself flow around the map. So that was the main reason.
And you know what? From even seeing you very much as that kind of float kind of player in Vanguard, one thing I've seen a lot from Vanguard to Modern Warfare 2, and it's more directly on subs, and even more directly at like hard points as well, for what happens like for the flanks and the rotations for subs. From Vanguard, it seems like you were able to make those flanks so much faster. In Modern Warfare 2, it seems a little bit slower. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, the tac sprint's a little finicky in this game. There is ways to reset your tac sprint mid-sprint, but sometimes it's kind of chalked. Like you'll melee, which is how you do your melee mid-sprint, and you usually get it back. But sometimes it doesn't work like that. It'll just you'll melee and then you'll get a dead sprint again, and then your route is now 2 seconds slower. When if you were 2 seconds faster, you get to the spot where you wanted to go initially, and you get behind a guy, and maybe you pop a 2-piece, get spawns. So it's little things like that too. As far as Vanguard, and Vanguard, it was way easier in my opinion, just because the tac sprint, you literally just had to slide cancel, which I did already instinctively to get behind places. And you're at your destination, and you pop a 3-piece, get yourself spawns. Bob's your uncle. So that was really like a really screwy mechanic for me, especially trying to get used to MW2, was learning how to get the melee into get your sprint back. And there's a lot. There's a lot on this game that I feel like a lot of people struggle with. But as a sub player, just in general, the Vaznev is buff. It's really good. Like before they patched it, like that thing's beaming. Like you're an AR regardless.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier today, and my goodness, can you absolutely feel the nerf at range now? But you know what? It was completely necessary. After the T1's last game, I was talking to Kier, and he's not a huge fan of MW2 because he feels like it's almost taken a step back skill gap wise from Vanguard. Whereas Vanguard, you had all this expression mobility wise that's been stripped away in big part in this MW2 game here now. Personally, how much of an impact do you feel like there's a much smaller skill gap now with the changes to movement?
No, but I can see what Zach means by that, honestly. I think this game really does tailor to really slow players, with the removal of slide canceling, the addition of the dolphin dive, and the kind of the removal of the easy tac sprint reset with slide canceling. It does tailor AR players. And I think, where Zach has problems too, and I think where a lot of us has problems is just sometimes we play too fast. And like I said, the turtle wins the race at the end of the day, right? So if you're going to be turtling up half the time just playing spawns or playing back, you're going to get 10 kill streaks, 15 kill streaks. You're going to double up your cruises. It's a hard game to really start repacing yourself, especially if you're a fast player. It's really tough. Like it's tough to especially in this game, to repace yourself if you are a player that's played this game for 3 years, and you've all you know is to play fast, and you really adapted your playstyle to play fast, and you're good at it. And then you go to this game, it's like, I'm playing against slugs. This is great. But wait, these slugs are really good because all they do is hold stuff, and I'm running into their pre-aims. No. Then you start to get mad.
No, I understand that. You know what? I talk about it on stream so much. You can just tell when the mental is just such a key component to Call of Duty. It's just being able to, if it's a close game, maintaining your focus. Or if you have a bad map, being able to stay dialed in. And you know what? I feel like that can also sort of just talk to the team dynamics you guys have had fluctuating, because in scenarios like that, I don't know how you feel about this, Mins, but like you really got to come together as a team, and having that repertoire of scrimming together, playing together, knowing who you're going into battle with per se, it really makes a difference when the rubber hits a road. And I feel like that's why, you know, in the scrims, you guys were finding success there in the preseason, but when the rubber hit the road, it just wasn't flowing as fluidly.
Yeah, it's a lack of leadership, honestly. And leadership is super important in any game, especially in COD too, because of how fast paced it is. You need someone to help. You know, if you're down 3 hills, you're down like 120-0, and you haven't touched the hill yet. It's like, okay, guys, let's slow down, let's rethink, let's hit something together, and yeah, like let's talk about T1 for a second for that, because they have everyone on that team is very vocal, and that's what I love about that team. They have, you know, Bonk, Cure, Boss Ross, Fiend. Fiend's one of the more quieter players, but like playing with him and, you know, seeing him play in actual matches too, like I know that there's passion flowing out of that man's mouth. He's all over the map, and I mean Teo's a very vocal player. He had that in ACAD last year, and you already know Bonk and Jiggy. He's been a staple on T1 for 2 years. He was kind of under the wing of, you know, Radix, Mega, and Pups last year. And he's done so much learning over the last year. Like I've literally watched this guy go back over VOD for 3 hours, you know, watch his Aspire matches, the org that he plays for. I've watched him go over those matches. I've watched him watch pro streams to learn the game. And that's the difference between the T1 team now and then the T1 team, the T2 team this year, is that lack of leadership. And like I mentioned earlier, I tried to be that. That's what I wanted to learn, is how to IGL while still maintaining my play. And it's really hard. I give a lot of, you know, IGLs so much credit that they're able to micromanage pieces around the map while still focusing on themselves and, you know, going off.
Okay, so to kind of proceed forward with this interview here, the real question is, you know, we've talked a lot about the past. We've broken down sort of how we've ended up here. What's next for Airzee?
Yeah, I've given this a lot of thought, and I'm planning on doing the old Method Zinni treatment. He recently just retired from Call of Duty. He I'll give you the rundown. He was pretty much into streaming when he got benched from Toronto team, and then he joined Boston's team, and he always had that passion for streaming and doing content. Ooh. Before he retired. And then he retired, and now he's back on the biggest esports organization in the world, Optic, and he's streaming and making content. I would really like to finish out this year just doing part-time content, you know, doing stuff like this with you guys. It would be really nice, and then I hope to come back in September to do full-time content-ish and work here for a bit, covering the COD team, covering pretty much all field teams. I think that'd be, you know, really good for my resume. It's something I've wanted to do for a long time. And I never thought I would honestly get to this point where I would have the experience and now know, you know, what to talk about and how to break it down and all that stuff. And here I am now, and I don't know, I think it's a really great opportunity, and I don't know, I'll see where this goes. Hopefully it works out, but as far as right now, I want to start with part-time content creation and hopefully move to full-time come the next school year.
Well, you know what? Coming off retirement just in the past week officially, you have so much time to sort of sit back, take a moment, appreciate the fact that you don't have to worry about scrimming, you don't have to worry about games anymore. You got a little more time on your hands, and, you know, maybe you'll find that passion for COD, just playing recreationally, you know, getting on that rank grind. Lord knows you were boosting my account earlier just
1v1 me, bro.
So, you know what I mean? So, but we're going to wrap up this segment here. We're going to have another segment coming at you quickly. I was CJ. Thank you, Mins, for joining me and doing all the production work for this episode. I've just been a pretty face and a voice here for this segment. And thank you, Airzee. You know, fresh off the retirement, we're dragging you right back into the shop right away for a little bit of a podcast action. When we come back, another segment for the Fuel Report.
1v1 me, bro. GG's.
flanks. It's just beautiful to see how he does that and just knows how to catch the other team off guard so well.
Yeah, no, definitely Mins, but yeah, my most memorable Airzee moment, and I might get a little emotional here, is when I first met all the Call of Duty guys at Fuel. I've competed in Call of Duty outside of Collegiate for a long time, and I chose to hang up competing after a half decent placement in an open bracket event. But yeah, my first day in hanging out with the Fuel guys, and whatever, just shooting the shit, hanging around, having a good time. I was trying to find some people to play ranked with me, and it was my first day, so everybody was like, oh, like, are we gonna play with this kid, blah blah blah, and me and Airzee, we sort of just played ranked on Vanguard for like 3 or 4 hours. And I think in those 3 or 4 hours, we dropped 1 or 2 maps, and crazy plays were made at Airzee. And I'm gonna miss him on the map, watching him do some insane stuff. But yeah, he that guy. I feel like any time I would play with him, he'd do something crazy, something that should be on some type of list.
No, well, you know what? You want to talk about crazy Airzee plays and some type of list? I guess it's time to move into CJ's top 10 plays of the week here, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know about all of you, but this is the exact sort of segment I was waiting for. Let's get started with some Rocket League. Everybody got involved here. I like to call it a little bit of tiki-taka. You're going to see Niagara University go for a clearance here. Not so fast, though, as Fanshaw's going to find the back of the net with our 10th spot. And you know what? I see Valorant and CoD as sort of these competing bodies within Fuel Esports. Well, Valorant's going to get on the board here. It's our first Valorant clip of the top 10, and it's Swarns in a 1v2. He's going to find one. He's going to also find the second. Oh, there it is. And he's putting in that work. This next clip, it's going to come at you really quick. It's the search and destroy, and it's the fastest clip I've ever seen. It's COD. Keep an eye on the mini-map and the kill feed. If you blink, you're going to miss this one. One of the fastest rounds I've ever seen out of Fanshaw's COD team here. A 17-second round, I believe.
Yeah, and you just see right there, you see everybody getting involved, everybody hitting their shots, and that's that. I have to agree, that was the fastest round I've ever seen.
We got some CSGO, and you know what? Teamwork's a wonderful thing to watch. Watch Nylander and Cairo spread some love in the 2v4 situation here. You know what? Got the initial damage in, but it's always important to execute, follow up, and clean up shop. Huge play by the CSGO team members here. You know what? Valorant has said we are not done for this evening yet. Mavici's going to squeak out of a tough spot here. Bit of a three-piece combo coming up here. I'm sure he's still wondering how the heck he got out of this situation here.
Wow.
Lawless coming up in our next spot. We got some Overwatch coming at you. Sork heads up play on Reaper. He's able to find 3 crucial kills to cap the point and win this round for fanshawefuel Overwatch. And Overwatch checking in with their first clip of the top 10. Moving on, I said some more Call of Duty action. Lincoln, you'll miss it. We got Fiend coming up with a quick 180 snap here. Let's slow that down there. That's instantaneous, and that's a gunny off of Fiend.
Yeah, and look
Even
at
in
his
the slow-mo.
Look at his
nasty.
head just flick to that player.
Valorant and COD going back and forth. Let's see some more Valorant action. A 4-kill clutch by Alco. My goodness. Not sure what OTSU was thinking here, but Alco is quick to execute here.
Yeah, he's making it look like COD on that head glitch there.
You thought we were done with Valorant for the week? We absolutely not. And not just Valorant. It's Swarns again in the top 10. Where there's a will, there's a way. Swarns, a little 4K clutch, and the Ninja Defuse. What a huge play. And you know what? Valorant really representing here in the top 10. But I don't think it's going to be a Valorant clip at the number 1 spot as we see the Ninja Defuse coming into play. And it's just a timing thing. My goodness. In the nick of the time. He should have peeked that earlier. but not today. Huge play by Swarns, who has 2 plays in our top 10. Our ultimate play of the week, though, it's Call of Duty. It's hardcore action. It's Fiend. He's going to find the 6-piece here, but it's just the point in the game. He's going to bring the fanshawefuel back to a tied game with this key 8 on the hardpoint hold. And you know what? You see doubles, you see triples every day in Call of Duty comp play. But the 6-piece, my goodness. And you know what? Coming off the Vaznev's nurse as well, that's a bit of range if you ask me. That's a crazy play. And you know what? Swarns, 2 plays in the top 10. Fiend says I can do better. I'm going to take the number 1 spot this week. I got to ask you guys, what was your favorite top 10 play of the week?
Honestly, I got to say it was the number 2 with Swarns. You know what? Just the way the reaction that he had when he had the op in his hand and then just quickly switches to the pistol, I was like, okay, how fast can you just react to that? And then even just him just going and getting the defuse right away. He wasn't like so sensitive and holding back with it. I thought it was just magnificent how he just was so aggressive in that play.
Yeah, you know, I think I'm going to have to agree with the list here. It's got to be that Fiend 6-piece. That was just insane, you know. You couldn't he manages to kill get a 3 and then gets another 3 on the same head glitch. And like we said earlier, like there's a lot of comms going back and forth. So he's been called out. They know he's there, and he doesn't care. He keeps cutting them down, and he manages to tie the game. And in such a closely contested series, a play like that is just that's what wins you series.
No, absolutely. And you know what? It took us a long time to sort of narrow down who exactly is going to make this top 10 list this week. You know, first episode of the Fuel Report, who's going to make it? How do we decide? And you know what? We kind of came to a group consensus. You know what I mean? But, you know, sneakily behind the scenes, you just got one little rewatch. I'll start with you, Mins. Are any of these top 10 plays you felt they were a little too high or a little too low?
You know what? There was a few that I thought maybe were like a little too high. Like especially with like the Fiend one with like the quick like kind of reaction of like turning back around. Like it is a phenomenal play, but like I think we have sort of seen plays like that come around in Call of Duty more than once.
Oh, come on now, Alex. Even in the super slow-mo, that was a pretty crazy snap if you ask me, but that's just my opinion. I guess we could see who is fighting for that one in the top 10. Night Flash, how about yourself?
Yeah, you know, like we said, we spent a lot of time on sleuthing through those top 10s, and I think the list is bang on. You know, there's so many crazy plays happen in a week, so it's hard to really narrow down what your top 10 is going to be. I might be a little biased. I'm a big COD fan, so but yeah, no, I think the list was bang on. You know, maybe an adjustment here or there, but overall, I completely agree with that list.
Yeah, and you know what? As we move on with our Fuel Report, and it gets a couple more episodes going, you know, the top 10, it's going to be coming at you every single week. So we're going to have some opportunity to sort through lots of clips, gets every team featured. And you know what? For fanshawefuel players out there, if you do want to, you know, if you know in a game that was being streamed or you got the clip yourself, you went on a burner, you had a crazy kill in one of the games, send it Apollo's way on Discord, and you'll have a chance to be featured in our next week top 10 plays of the week. You know, if we have enough clips, maybe we'll throw a couple honorable mentions into the mix. Now, let's talk about Apex. You know what I mean? It's sort of the forgotten beast in the Fuel Nation. And I guess esports in general, you know what I mean? Because for so long, EA wasn't so keen on allowing people even to make the custom games. You know what I mean? I'm not sure if it was from EA or Respawn directly, but you needed some sort of code to even make that custom lobby. And that was going to, you know, your streamers on Twitch, your YouTubers, your pro players, pro orgs. Really difficult to get done. Now, you know, coming into 2023, we're seeing the option now. We can actually, you know, you can make a custom lobby. Leagues can host college teams. It's just the one stipulation of they can't lock it to make it exclusively college, which is kind of the sort of like the asterisk on the situation. You can't say this league is only college players. You can market it to college players. You can say it's for college players. But at the end of the day, if I want to get a buddy from Western Guelph and Windsor, we could, in theory, compete together. You could get some random anybody's, and you could compete in the same league with the college teams. But, the college teams at least now have a platform to compete if they'd like to. For you guys, how do you feel about this new sort of opportunity?
You know what? I think the more esports that are introduced, the better. It tends to be an issue when you get into like a big org, as esports is. It's a very expensive thing to be in, but in a at a collegiate level, we have so much funding, and it's. I think that it's good. It's good to get players exposure at that collegiate level. I think it's good for the school. I think it's good for the students. It gives if you're not into sports but you're really into video games, you have a team to cheer for. You have a college team to cheer for. So I think the more esports that are at this collegiate level are better. The better.
To be honest, what I'm quite surprised with is for Apex to actually take this long. Fortnite, you know what? They were so for it, so fast. And Apex is very similar to the type of game. And I don't know why they were thinking on, well, it's like, oh, we need to do something like this or something like that. It's like, no, like Fortnite was like, no, we're jumping right into it.
Yeah, you know what? It took such a long time to get it established. And you know what? You can look at it from one perspective where like, oh, darn, you know what I mean? I think it sucks how they don't have an exclusive college league or university league. But you know what? I just never say never. I think that's going to be an eventual thing. But until that day, me personally, I think it's such a unique opportunity because you know what? Let's use Call of Duty, for example. A lot of those guys, they have friends, they compete, they scrim, they practice with guys on other teams, you know what I mean? And to just have a game, a shooter's a shooter, a shooter. Obviously, I can't really make a lot of parallels between Apex, the BR, and Call of Duty, but there's definitely going to be some crossover in the skills and just being able to compete against someone, say, in Call of Duty for a year or two and know this person, get that repertoire and be like, hey, you want to run a couple of Apex tournaments together, get some diver. I think it's super interesting of a concept before we start seeing those full-fledged college leagues.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that's a very good point that I'm sure a lot of our viewers and I know I myself hadn't even thought about. But yeah, I think overall this Apex League being open to collegiate players, and then not only that, but also not same school collegiate players. You can, like as you said, you can team with anybody that goes. You can team with your buddies from back home, wherever. I think it's going to be really good. I think it really opens up the esports space because in a lot of smaller tournaments you're competing for pennies of what bigger tournaments are competing for. But this Apex prize pool, like it's not small. I think we have a screenshot that we can look at real quick to sort of take a quick look at how much these players are playing for. Like those are not small amounts of money. Like that is a sizable chunk of cash, and I think wow. I think it's going to be good for both the competitive scene and for collegiate players all around to have this opportunity.
Yeah, you know what? What we're looking at right now is the Apex Tellus tournament. I guess you could call it little series of tournaments. And you know what? It took EA Respawn a little bit to open up this competitive play, but the Fuel were quick to act when the opportunity arose. Fanshawe actually has 3 teams competing right now. So our one team, they're competing in the advanced division you're looking at right now. So you know what? We got a squad ready to compete and throw down with the heavyweights of this Tellus tournament series. And then we also have a 2 and 3 team, and they're competing in the open skills division. So you know what? We were quick. It may have taken EA a while, but we have Apex opportunities here at Fanshawe and with the Fuel. You know what I mean? And speaking of Apex opportunities, it's not too late for those listening. There's an Apex tournament here at Fanshawe tomorrow.
Sign up, play. It'll be fun.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, you can. Sorry to cut you off there, but you can dip your toe into the competitive waters if you're new to esports, and if you're a seasoned vet, you can walk away with that title of the Fanshawe Fuel Best Apex Team. So definitely sign up if you enjoy Apex or if you're new to esports, old to esports. However, it'll be fun, and yeah, that's I'm pretty excited about that. I'm excited about that. I'm also excited for Apex clips in the top 10. Like Apex clips are crazy. So
I
like
was about to say
I'm
that.
pretty gassed about that. Like I think that's what I'm most excited about with it, us now competing in it, is getting clips in the top 10 because they're nuts.
Plus,
Yeah,
I'm so glad the triple take is actually out from the whole like being in like the care package now, so you can actually finally play it, because like, you know what, those are gonna be some hot clips.
no, you know what the thing is, because we're streaming that tournament as long as we get it filled up to capacity and ready to run. And good luck to whoever's observing that, because you know what, I'm just a pretty face. I'm not a behind the scenes sort of guy. I have no idea how to be a quality observer, but I know following around in a BR is definitely going to be difficult. But you know what, the thing about BRs, which like I've played them at times, my goodness, it gets me so frustrated at other times. You know what I mean? The third party aspect of BRs, you know what I mean? And I feel like that's just something you don't actually see. That's a completely different angle on competitive esports. You know what I mean? You look at R6, Valorant, CSGO, Call of Duty, you know what I mean? There's a set objective. You know exactly, you're fighting these guys in front of me. You don't have to worry about any other scenarios. Like Call of Duty, everybody knows the rotations. Everybody knows the angles, the guns, you know what I mean? There's obviously tons to think about, but it's like the small things. You don't have to think about breathing, you know, swallowing, blinking. That's happening automatically, and there's so many of those little things happening in a lot of normal esports. But you look at Apex, you don't know what gun they're carrying. You don't know what armor they have. You don't know how far away the other teams are, and there's so many unknown variables that come into play, which I think it makes it one of the most potentially dynamic esports we could get the opportunity to watch.
It's gonna be so exciting, dude. It like, you know what, I know, yeah, I am a little bit of a Apex fan myself, and seeing Feel, they have 3 teams themselves that are really trying to get into this sort of Telus sort of league. It's exciting, and it's pretty big. And I know, I think our one person, Angel Grime, she's really huge into it as well, and I know she's super hyped for Field to actually have this going on.
Yeah, you know, if I find myself back at the Fanshawe next semester, maybe, just maybe, I can dabble in some Apex myself. Now, I feel like it's time that we start progressing towards the outro here. So you know what? I'm going to toss to each of you guys. What are some things you guys want to discuss before we end today's show? You know, we've got to see some top 10 clips. We've got to talk some collegiate Apex. What have I missed as the host down the stretch here?
Nothing really, other than you know, be sure to, if you want to stay up to date completely on your fanshawefuel, watch this on Saturdays, and then we also have streams completely throughout the week. So definitely tune into those. I think we're going to take a quick look at our schedule here in a minute. But Mins, if you got anything to add, like I think this might be a wrap.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think there's really much else to talk about for the Apex. It's exciting that finally now we're going to see some competitions going down for that on that side. And you know what? There were some unfortunate things that we were a little bit talking about with Call of Duty here today. But you know what? That's sometimes just the way that things go. And it's exciting to see what some other things are going to be going around here on Fuel.
Yeah, you know what? It's going to feel a little hollow without T-Tomb around. The COD scene's just going to be a little quieter, a little less to talk about. But I'm absolutely certain we have not spoken about COD for the last time here on the Fuel Report. And you know what? We got the socials, we got the streams during the week. But the Fuel Report, this is your hub for all things Fuel. We're going to be coming at you every single Saturday. We got your top 10. You're going to get your hot streak week after week. And then outside of those 2 segments, we're just going to throw you a consistent amount of content. We're going to have player interviews. We're going to have caster interviews. We're going to throw some behind the scenes action at you. So you know what? If you're just kicking back on a Saturday evening, you have something to look forward to here on the weekly. Now, if we don't have schedules to go to right now, I can assure you throughout next week, we're going to have, we do have schedules to go to. So let's toss to our schedules real quick. Let's look at what we have coming up in the Fuel in this next week here. Tomorrow, We got some CSGO Face It action. We got to watch that yesterday evening as well. And the CSGO team, pretty strong team. You know, we talked in Hot Streak about how that was their first loss of the season. So they'll be looking against Carnegie Mellon to get back on track. Coming into Monday, we got some Rocket League NACE action. It's going to be the one team. It's going to be the Academy team. And then we're going to get some fanshawefuel CCL CoD. That's Division 2. That's getting streamed. I'll be there. That'll be a good time. We got some fanshawefuel Rocket League after that. Some more Rocket League. That's NECC. So NACE and NECC. And then we got some Valorant as well. Tuesday, we got some Rainbow Six again, NECC. A little more Valorant. Wednesday, Call of Duty Fuel back in action against St. Edward's University. We got some more Valorant. We got the ever-elusive Overwatch and some more Rocket League as well. And we're going to round out your week with some more Rocket League on Friday. Call of Duty once more. Sorry, CSGO on your Friday as well. Rocket League and a undetermined Rainbow Six game and Face It action. You know what's coming up after those Friday games? Some more Fuel Report for you on Saturday. Thanks for joining us for our pilot episode. Thank you for Apollo for being one of the best producers I've gotten to work with so far. He's done some brilliant work for the Fuel Report. There's been great graphics we've all got to enjoy here so far today. Thank you to Mins and Night Flash for joining me on this evening. Remember, submit your clips to Apollo on Discord if you're interested in next week's Top 10. And on that note, that's a wrap to episode 1 of the Fuel Report.